Hey guys, my name's Kim and I've got Kathrine and Matt from Superb Learning with us today on the Deep Dive podcast. These guys are great partners of ours. We do a lot of work together in the e-learning and instructional design space. And both of us, or all of us together, have been kind of on our own little journey around gamification. I went to a workshop to learn about it from a uni perspective, and these guys have recently written a blog on it, and I thought, great opportunity to get people that are passionate about it and have interests in gaming at home onto the show, and yeah, avid fan over here. So yeah, just like let's explore basically gamification and how it can be used in the learning space. So I am going to throw it over to you, Kathrine, because I know you are super passionate about games.
I am.
And I would like to know, what is it that gets you playing games? Or do you play for hours and hours?
Yes, I have. I have literally put about 200 hours into one game.
Wow.
Not at one time, that was broken up. But I have gamed to a point where 8 hours will just go.
Yeah. What game is it?
I play a lot of role playing.
Yep.
So it's Final Fantasy series, but there are others, and that's the main one.
And why are you hooked so much? How can you put 200 hours of your life into it?
Well, there's many reasons. I think especially with that franchise or role play, that's the whole point. You get in role, you get to choose character, and I think it's that autonomy, that control over who you want to be, and it's designing a character too, so you have that chance to and choose different abilities.
Oh, wow.
So forth. Yeah. And then you get to obviously be that character. I can just spend hours just making the character, but I think it's also the other characters within the game. So, and the storyline is amazing. It's so detailed, and yeah, it goes on for ages. The story.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are there other games, like what's a game that hasn't hooked you?
Probably more shooting games.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because I'm not very good at shooting. I always miss. I'm like a stormtrooper. But no, I think I like the whole fact that it's role play, because you do become immersed into the story. There's the whole world. There's the map that you can go and you have that freedom to go on your own journey as well.
That's cool.
Yeah, and you have quests, and that's the whole idea of accomplishment. So I will farm for hours. I will just go and kill one enemy for hours and hours and hours, because they need to drop a specific something, that's valuable to making a weapon, and you want that sense of achievement, that you want to gain that thing.
I love it.
Yeah.
So they're really cool things though. So you got sense of achievement, the autonomy, you love the story and the characters that you get captured in. What about you, Matt? Do you play games, and like has it ever captivated you?
No, I haven't really been a huge game player. I've probably been busy doing other things. Unfortunately.
Having a life.
No, but I understand what Kathrine's saying, and yeah, there's certainly some really good stuff, and there's some good research actually around, taking back to the learning piece around that people are actually more engaged in a learning piece if they actually can select the avatar that they're going to be, and if there's that autonomy, to sort of select who they are and what their character is going to be. It actually adds to the experience. So I think there's a lot of stuff that is done in the gaming type space that we should be duplicating, or looking at how we can duplicate into learning experiences. I mean, you probably would never say to someone, hey, here's a course, and go and it's going to be 2 hours of doing this course.
Yeah.
But if you actually had content and someone spent 2 hours, delving into content because they had all of those things, the personalisation, the ability to go on their own journey to get that content that they needed for their own, for their own personal development, then that would be great if they're doing that. Unfortunately, though, at the moment, people probably try and avoid anything that's more than an hour long because it's boring as batshit, and they don't want to do it. So certainly bringing in those elements of gaming and having people motivated to do that is something we need to be looking at more. And it's something we're certainly talking about, and how we can actually bring in more of those game elements and do more game stuff. And I think the role play piece as well is another good one. Where you're then asking people to rely on their own experiences, not simply regurgitate what they've been told.
Yeah. When we talk about the game elements, I know what always comes up to when I talk with clients and they say we want gamification. Normally what they want is just something that looks colourful, and it probably goes to the extent of their knowledge, which is around points and badges. But we know that it goes beyond that, and there's more to motivation. So what can you guys share on that?
Look, I mean, certainly we do a lot with stuff around certainly around the points and badges, with the social learning platform Curator and a lot of that, and that does work well. So it's not certainly wouldn't be discounting the idea of points and badges, because they are great for motivation, and there's been, again, some good research. I remember reading this article about an organisation that was using badges to as a way to motivate their staff, and the staff were getting badges for completing courses. And when they brought that out, there was actually a large increase in the uptake of courses that people were doing. Awesome. Then they went, oh, hang on, this has been really popular, it's been a really huge uptake. Right, how about if we now allow people to actually trade those badges in for material things, such as free lunches, an hour off work, all that sort of stuff. There was no further increase in the uptake. So people were simply motivated by getting the badges. The material rewards didn't matter to them. It was the badges that they were actually engaged with, and also the competition. So that's the thing, and that's where I think the points comes into it quite well, is you can actually then have leaderboards and stuff like that as part of the points and bring in some competition. And certainly if you've got a training program that is internal, and you've got people like, oh, Kathrine, and we'd probably end up competing against each other, trying to get them more points, just to have that bit of kudos where you can actually go, hey, I've got more points than you. And you do that by sort of getting in and learning and motivating. So I think there's some good stuff around that, but certainly going beyond that into those other things that Kathrine was talking about before, that's the next level of it, and it needs to have the right sort of course as well. I mean, there's some things where you probably wouldn't wouldn't gamify things. We developed a while ago developed a course around domestic and family violence. Probably wouldn't gamify that, but then there's other things, compliance type courses that you could. So it's a matter of working out where it fits.
How do you determine where it fits? What's a good course? Like, what's your process that you guys use?
That's a good question. I mean, I suppose it's a lot of it comes down, unfortunately, to I suppose the client's appetite for what they want to do and what they're willing to invest in. But I think what I look at is things around where we can actually give people the freedom and autonomy to explore, and then reward them for that exploration. So certainly things like compliance, where if you think about a lot of people have probably, unless they're very new into the organisation, have probably been in other organisations, probably had to do other compliance type courses, health and safety, privacy, all that sort of stuff. Or your soft skills, everyone at some stage has probably been a customer, so they probably don't need to be told these are the top 10 things around customer service. So you can probably build a really cool game around, okay, here you go, you've got to do some stuff in a customer service experience. And that to me is those sort of things where you go, okay, well, if people have already got a level of knowledge, then I certainly think that we can build on that knowledge and throw them into a game, rather than simply having them being sort of passive observers and sort of lean back as they're doing the reading dull content.
Sort of applying that knowledge, like in the game as well, we have what we call non-playable characters. And they're the ones that you go up to in a situation. You need stuff from them, and they set you little mini quests, and you interact with them, and it's like that idea. They give you a dilemma, or and you feel you have to solve it for them. And there is reward in that once you do, but again, it's relational. So within the game, you're building relationship and interacting with other characters.
And I suppose you've got that emotional connection to them, because that they've asked you to do this for them, and maybe they've told you some backstory around, I don't know, my family and all this kind of thing, and then you're like, oh,
absolutely.
I want to help them.
And you also work as a team. You have to have people that come on board, and you play against particular monsters or bosses, as we know them, and they've got different skills, and you have to work as a team. And then of course there's also, if you're gaming online, there's that social aspect to it, and then you will chat and make friends with people from all over the world, and you will help each other and share knowledge.
Wow.
So there's that social learning.
Do you enjoy that side of it when you have that global experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And what you tend to do if you're not really used to the game, or there's a really hard part, you all join in and you have your different roles, and you go into a dungeon and you've got more experienced players, and you're learning from them.
Yeah, wow.
It's a really good social aspect.
That's really cool. It reminds me of an experience I had where I think it was World of Warcraft, right? And so I was doing a leadership course, and we were all there to develop our leadership skills, but we played World of Warcraft from around the world. We had to log in and to achieve the quests, and it was so interesting. So we had these coaches who were like listening in virtually, but their characters were like flying off in the sky, and they just observed. But we had to do quests by the little characters that we'd meet along the way, and then we'd each take a turn of it was from 2 hours, so we get half an hour of leading our group. And it was about how we interacted with each other. Did we check in, because I remember the first time I played it, I couldn't bloody move my character, and I wasn't running as fast as everyone else. But the leader at the time ran so ahead, and I was like, I don't know where you guys are. And then they're like, check the map. And I was like, I'm lost. And it was really interesting, in that experience, starting to build that self-awareness, by playing a game on what my strengths as a leader are or are not. What's my communication skill like? When do I give objectives, and about giving feedback at the end of tasks? It was really cool. So you can have that stuff in the workspace, but this was a 10-week journey basically, where we got in, and then the coaches would come in at the end and they'd debrief us and give us that feedback, and that was cool. Initially I was like, I don't want to play a game, but when you're in there, it was just you're a team, you've got a project or a task to achieve, and then go on, and it was cool. The learning was really cool.
And I think that concept of quests is really cool. I mean, I remember seeing, going back 15, 18 years ago now, and the concept of web quests came out when the internet was still quite young, and they were using it quite a lot in high schools and things, where they're just going, right, well, rather than us telling you everything, we'll give you a quest. And they would have to go away and research things on the internet around, and some of the ones I saw were around travel, and they had to go away and build a travel brochure. But all of that was they had to go on this quest and find the information. And I think that idea of the quests and actually going out and having people find information, and again, there's so much content out on the internet, rather than having to create everything, we can have people where they can actually go and curate content, or even have user-generated content. So there's a whole lot of other aspects when you talk about gamification. I mean, just today, what we've mentioned, we've talked about things like personalisation, which is another aspect of learning. We've talked about social learning. There's the concept of user-generated content, curation. There's all these other things that fit into the whole concept of gamification. That when you sort of start to explore the possibilities, obviously things like badges and points and motivation, there's a lot of stuff there that it runs off into other areas that could work really well if you actually just use the game as the sort of the central point.
That's cool. Talk to us about, I know you're really passionate about content curation. How does it benefit learning designers?
Well, I suppose in some ways it can do them out of a job. I mean, because they're not having.
We'll cut the webinar now.
well, I mean, it shouldn't, but in terms of they may not have to actually go and develop so much content, and so therefore there may not be as much work for them. But certainly I think there's the ability to actually look at, right, there's some really good content out there, and the job of the learning designer, I think, is then actually making sense of that, bringing it together. I mean, and that's the thing where you've got a obviously distinct difference between content curation and aggregation. So there's a lot of tools out there where we can aggregate content. I can go and do a search on content and pull it together, but I haven't actually done anything with it. So it's then a matter of that, the next step is the curation piece, to go, right, well now I've got all this aggregated content, what am I going to do with it, and how am I going to put it together? You know, it goes back to, you know, the likening it to the museum and the art director, and the art director's probably got a warehouse full of paintings, but he's only going to put half a dozen paintings or a dozen paintings in a room.
So true.
And that's where the job of the learning designer comes in. He's actually looking at that and going, right, well I've got all this content here, but I actually only want these 6 or 8 or 10 objects to send the message and to tell that story. And that's, I think, where they need to be looking. You know, and in some cases they go, right, well I've got, you know, to tell this story, and here's half a dozen objects that are already on the web. Okay, I need to build 2 more to put it together. Or maybe I build the overarching framework, or maybe I'm building the game that is linking people to that content. So I think that's where the learning designers can look at the idea of more time in the actual design of the experience and less time in the design of the content, because they can curate the content.
It's so true, like, because there's so many fantastic TED Talks and things like that out there working that are motivating and compelling people to do something different. So why would you try and tell that story or that principle again, or recreate it because we feel that that's our role as learning designers, where really it's going, that's something that works, millions of people have gone, this has impacted my life, okay, that's the key piece that is going to help solve that thing that I need to tick as part of my solution. So
yeah, that's right. And it is, and then obviously if you can then build the game aspect around it, so it might be, you know, having, whether they view that content as, you know, pre-knowledge requirement and then go and play a game, or they actually have to go and find that content themselves amongst stuff that you've built or you've given them sources to look at. There's a whole range you can do that.
What kind of tools have you guys used for the gamification? Like, so storyline, obviously you can still do elements in there and things that come up, you know, if points just come up, that's just variables and layers. Captivate, similar. Like, are there any other tools that you can recommend to the viewers that they should check out that can help with gamification? Yeah,
well, I mean, I suppose if you're talking about the authoring tools, well, the simple ones obviously are things like Storyline, Captivate. Evolve is another one, and that's actually already got pre-built gamification things in it, such as points, stars, achievements. So you don't have to go and do the creation of variables and things that you would have to do in Storyline and Captivate. So that's a pretty cool one. Another one which I don't get to play with enough is a tool called ChatMapper. And ChatMapper is actually a branching scenario tool. It was actually originally designed as a game engine. So there's a lot of games, people have probably played some of these games that were built with ChatMapper as the back engine. And so what you can actually now do with ChatMapper is now available, where you can actually use it then to create branching scenarios with avatars and things, but you can actually take it that step further if you wanted to and actually put in a whole lot of, you know, really cool graphical interface and actually create your own game using that tool. And that's probably a really good one that you've got out there. And then there's actually another tool that's sort of tied into ChatMapper, which actually allows you to then push some of that stuff into a virtual reality environment. So then you can actually create the game might be interacting with people, and, you know, as Kathrine mentioned before about having these non-players, we can actually create an experience with non-players, so you actually talk to them and get information, but you could then actually put that into a virtual space, and people could then go, right, we're actually in a completely virtual room or virtual environment, and going around and playing and experiencing that. So so there's some of the ones that we use, but most of the tools you will be able to do something, but it's just a matter of how complex you want to get, and whether you've got the knowledge or the skills to do the variables and you know, conditioning and stuff that needs to happen.
No, that's cool. I think I'd like to go back to the story side of things, especially around the story and those role playing, and like what captivates you in that aspect and that aspect of it, and then how can you use that in how you create your training solution?
I think just with storytelling generally, whether it's in anything, why we love film or novels or books, there's sometimes 3 acts, or there's always, stories have to have something. They have to have obviously a very strong hook, a beginning, and then there has to be some sort of dilemma. There has to be something in there that needs resolving.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the standard good storytelling.
Yeah.
I think then it has to have obviously little mini side stories as well, but it's all about that enrolling you in the character too. So it's kind of looking at dialogue as well, so you have to really look closely at how you write really strong dialogue between characters, because that is going to get you interested. It's not always easy writing really good
Do you have any tips?
dialogue. I suppose I think what would be good is if you actually sat with someone and you actually did some improvisation.
Love it.
So you kind of said, I'm this person, you're that person, let's record and let it just flow, and then take gems from that, really, rather than sometimes just sitting there or at the keyboard saying, the first person said, and then, so that you're actually getting into role and improvising to help you develop the script or the dialogue.
That's really cool. Do you think in a story, when you've got those elements of like the beginning, the plot, the what goes on, and then it's like, oh, happy days, or the resolution, whatever it is, can you mix them up in order? Because I'm just thinking in learning, like sometimes you put the activity first and then you take them on the journey. How do you see that happening? I'm not like familiar with this, so.
Oh, I don't know. I think sometimes, we do the old, there's, an opening scene or something like, call it the hook, and it might actually be the ending, and then there's a whole flashback idea. So you can play around with how you put things in and intrigue the learner, and start with the end. Don't ever do that one though where there's a really good story and then at the end they wake up and it was all a dream.
No.
And you read children's stories and it's like, no one's allowed to do that one. It's never wake up.
Remember that. That's cool.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, stories for learning?
Oh yeah, no, very good. I mean, people remember the context more than the content. And they'll remember stories more than they'll remember facts. So I think, if you can build the stories into it and engage people in the story, then there's certainly some huge benefits there. I mean, you've just got to look at, there's so many stories that have, been around for years, and urban myths and all these sort of different things, and like Aesop's fables were written back in 400 BC or something, like some stupid thing like that. And they're still got good stories. It's still, and they've been passed along. So there's obviously some features about them people are using, and there's some good messages in them. So I think if you can then again do that in the learning situation, and when people when people remember stuff as well, when you're talking to them, they'll go, "Oh, remember this time when." They don't remember. They very rarely will they actually remember a simple fact. There's probably a story around why they're remembering that fact. And again, with stories can help to trigger other emotions and other experiences as well, which can then help with that further learning.
That's so true. I think one thing I've just been exploring a couple of examples at the moment, just for inspiration and around that emotion and bringing in the other senses, and especially in the e-learning space. Like, so a few of the examples that I saw, they had like this eerie music playing, and like all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I'm not just doing e-learning, I'm like, what's going on? It was like mysterious, and the narrator was speaking in an accent like an old movie, and you could start to visualize like those old gangster movies, the way it was set up. But then there's like, so that side of it where you've got like the music coming in, how like it's not just a general voiceover going, oh, on this page, blah blah blah, like that story is brought in with those senses. There was another one where it was an interactive video, and it's basically like you choose your own adventure. Well, you don't choose your own adventure because it's like a knife one, and it's like, do you end up stabbing someone at the back because of like peer pressure? But that real sense of the story where it's first person, this guy comes in, he's talking to you, they're like, come on mate, you gotta go, you feel under pressure, and you're like, oh my god, what's my decision next? And like now I feel like it's connected to me because it's in the feeling.
Yep.
That's the British youth work.
Yeah.
If you play the right pathway, you actually get stabbed yourself. And you pass out on it, and that's it, and that finishes. So, and that thing just brings up some really good emotion. And they certainly have some good results with that as a tool to educate children, not children but youth in terms of dealing with gang violence and knives and things like that. So and that's the thing. You could easily have gone, hey, here's an infographic which shows you how many kids have been stabbed with knives, and they'd probably go, it's not going to happen to me, I'm not going to get that situation. But then if you actually build a story and put them into that story, then it might have a bit more of a thing there. And again, there's coming back to the emotional piece as well, is that you don't know what emotional things might trigger people's memories and things, or what their emotional motivators are. And if you actually build a good story, then you might actually get the emotional motivators in a couple of ways. So if we go, okay, let's build a story around health and safety, and well, there might be one person that's got the motivator around actually being safe and wanting to be healthy. But then there might be someone else that realises, okay, if I actually injure myself at work, and my wife's just had a baby, and at home we've got no other income, then financial motivators are going to have an impact there. So it just depends on how you build that story, but there could actually be different motivators, which then has a different impact on how people respond to that training. Whereas your standard hits and content, read it, is not going to interact into those different motivators. So
that's cool. All right, well, we might wrap it up soon. So what is a resource or a tool that has helped you in your gamification or storytelling journey that you can share with the audience and go, you guys should check this out?
I suppose in terms of storytelling, there's a couple of great books. Ray Jimenez, who works with Vignettes Learning in the US. I've got three or four of his books, and they've been great. Some really good things, and talking about what Kathrine was talking about in terms of the elements of needing in stories. So for me, in the story-based thing, that's one of the places I'd go. And he's certainly very quite a good character and quite knowledgeable in that space. So great resource to go to there.
Yeah, cool. Do you have any?
I was just thinking for people maybe who aren't in the gaming world but are interested, and they don't want to play a game, but there's this channel called Twitch, and you can actually go on and watch people game, and they talk about there's obviously with anything there's really great channels and there's channels that aren't, but that's a really good way to just have a look at the gaming world and have someone talk about their experiences and things, and you can get in the chat room and so forth. But that's just something I can think of for people who aren't in that sort of world and don't want to pick up a game to
I think it's a good point, and I think mine would be experiment. Like maybe just download an app and give it a go and figure out why you like it, what has made you, or even just look at your home screen now, what sits on the home screen, what are the common apps that you keep going back to, like the notifications that pops up on Facebook, that's an element of game mechanics, to get you in there to go back, and how they show you the content. So think about, why do I keep going back into this? And then on the story side of things, like I think pay attention to the song that you listen to. Why is that your favorite song? What kind of story, what connection does it have to you? And same with movies, why do you love that movie as your favorite one? Or, or what do you not like about the song or movies as well?
And I think advertising as well is a good one to look at. When you look at ads and look at what they do with some ads, and they are going through and telling stories,
And that's in a really short space of time, what they can do in that little bit of time. That's
and sometimes it might be annoying, but you actually do remember it.
Yes.
So there's some
Frank
good
Walker.
features. That's it, Frank Walker and National Trials, but there's some very very good elements that they use in telling the story and engaging people. In ads, and we probably should be doing more of that in our learning as well.
I really like that. Cool. Well, thank you to Kathrine and to Matt. Really appreciate having this chat with you and getting all excited about gamification and storytelling. So thank you to listeners. Hope you enjoyed the chat and look forward to having you on the next listen to our podcast. Thank you.
There you go.
Bye.